Welcome back to another edition, a branch of Unconventional Playbook with UP Nation. You know, we got the three-point play. I heard a really good title. People have been writing in, giving us suggestions for names. Three the Hard Way is one that I really like, that I'm leaning towards, but we'll get that figured out by next week. But for now, I'm joined by my guys. I'm joined by my guys once again. Coach Hot Rod, Mr. Rodney Young. What's up, Rod?
What is going on? What's happening, UP Nation? Stand up.
And I got my guy, Mr. Terrence Austin T. is in the house
UP
as well.
Nation? What's going on, UP Nation?
Awesome, man. This is always fun, and let's just dive right into it. There's a lot of things that's been going on this past week, but the one thing that I want to start off with is another domino fell when it came to another quarterback being taken off the market. This kind of affects the Cleveland Browns and the Minnesota Vikings, because the Minnesota Vikings, everything was rumored. You know, all of my sources out there was telling me that the Vikings had a deal done with Joe Flacco, and they were waiting until after the draft to get that thing signed, sealed, and delivered. And the Cleveland Browns kind of swooped in and gave him a one-year deal, but it's verbalized as a 4-year deal, but there's a lot of incentives that's piled on top of that. What do we think about the move with the Cleveland Browns bringing back Joe Flacco?
Let me go first, Rod. I welcome it. I wish he would have never left. I look at it as a veteran quarterback, a Super Bowl winning quarterback in the room to help Kenny Pickett or whomever else we draft. So I'm all for it. I wish he would have never left. Yeah, the playoff game where he fizzled out against the Texans, you know, he wasn't himself. That happens, okay? But we still love him. I do too, and I welcome Mr. Flacco back. He came from that Raven organization, so he's tested and ready. Okay,
Yep.
So again, I'm all for it, and now let's see who we choose in the draft to help, be that bridge to get our franchise guy, going within the next season or two. So I welcome Mr. Flacco back.
Yeah, for me, when I saw it, I mean, I got excited, and it was like, okay, this is the bridge quarterback. This is the veteran that we need. I hear all the naysayers. Yeah, he's 40 years old, didn't do a whole lot in Indianapolis, But then listening to some of the other broadcasters, Tony Grossi, who is a longtime Cleveland Browns writer, said that actually Joe Flacco turned down other offers because he wanted to go back to Cleveland. Shout out to Andrew Berry, because
Yeah.
Andrew Berry brought him back, which means he basically admitted, hey, I made a mistake in letting this guy go. And so he backtracked, he brought him in. I think, him with Kenny Pickett and whatever quarterback that the Browns decide to pick up, I think now your quarterback room is solid. It's a 1-year deal for $4 million, but the incentives take it up to $13 million. I know David Njoku is very excited because he had his best year with Joe Flacco. Okay, all the other receiving core, they're going to be excited. Jerry Judy's going to be excited if the Browns do what I think they're going to do in drafting Travis Hunter. Now you got a formidable group with a veteran quarterback, and don't be surprised and be on the lookout for Nick Chubb to return. Okay, because Nick Chubb hasn't had any offers. Nick Chubb has been sitting. He's been waiting patiently. Look at Nick Chubb coming in on a 1-year prove-it deal because they're not sold on Jerome Ford. They're going to get another running back in the draft, but Nick Chubb, and this is with the Joe Flacco signing and the possible Nick Chubb signing, this is telling the fans of Cleveland, we hear y'all. We got you. Relax. We're good. This is that bridge. This is what they need. So I'm very happy to see Joe Flacco come back. Now, Joe Flacco is a little better than Jameis Winston, okay? But here's the thing. Joe Flacco going to throw some interceptions, but Joe Flacco going to consistently throw for 300 yards as he's shown a couple years ago. he's going to be able to do that. So, and he's not afraid to push the ball downfield. So I'm really excited to see Joe Flacco back in Cleveland. I'm waiting for them to go ahead and re-sign Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the fans, Rod, because I think Andrew Berry, he's kind of in that mode of it seems like the organization has the pulse of the fans now. And I remember watching, I can't remember what the podcast was called, but it was a group of individuals that used to interview Cleveland Browns fans after home games when they were coming out of the stadium. And I remember when it was Joe Flacco's year, the fans couldn't say enough about Joe Flacco. So Joe has that love within the dog pound organization, the Cleveland Browns organization. I know that the fans of Cleveland, that's a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of what next year could look like. I think you're absolutely right about Nick Chubb. T and I were actually talking about Nick Chubb off the air about the possibilities of whether or not he's going to return to the Cleveland Browns. And now you have this signing of Joe Flacco. And so I think it sets the Browns up to go at least two directions. I think the pick is either going to be Abdul Carter or it's going to be Travis Hunter. What T and I were talking about off the air is they're using words like generational talent for a guy like Travis Hunter. I don't know if he's that, but he's super talented on both sides of the ball. So when you have a guy like that, you're either going to have to choose which side of the ball he plays on, or if you're going to let him do double duty in the NFL. The NFL is a little bit different than college.
Not different.
Big difference. Whether or not he can do that, I know his coach, Deion Sanders, did that, for the Atlanta Falcons, San Francisco 49ers, those organizations that he played for. Travis Hunter, the verdict is out whether or not he's going to be able to do it. But if the Cleveland Browns go Travis Hunter, I really like the pick. I won't be mad either way if it's Travis or Abdul, but I really like the pick of Travis Hunter for the Cleveland Browns.
So I think, the reason I think it's going to be Travis Hunter is because you're drafting 2 and 1. I think he's going to play more on the offensive side of the football, and then he is going to, spot in, defensively. The only reason I don't think that Travis Hunter is built for both sides of the ball, in my opinion, is because he's frail in stature. He's not a very big guy, you know what I mean? And of course, the NFL is a whole lot different beast. Now, is he an athlete? Absolutely.
Yes, he is.
And actually, let me retract something. He's not a two-way player. He's actually can be a three-way, because not only can he play defense, not only can he play offense, but now you can put him back there. You can put him as a kickoff or a punt returner. Okay. Yep. Now he becomes electric. All right. So that's why, and I think the Browns will pass on Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is a great defensive end / linebacker. But there are a lot of DNs in this draft, okay? Me being an Ohio State guy, got JT Tuimoloau, and then you have, Jack Sawyer, who are out, but there are also a couple others. So I think you can pass on Abdul Carter, but when it comes to Travis Hunter, if you can't get Cam Ward, Travis Hunter has got to be that guy. Also, real quick, I do appreciate Jimmy Haslam coming out this week, and he made a statement that when you say now they have the ear of the people, well, of course, because they're doing the stadium in Brook Park, of course, he's going to do public relations. All right.
Yes, sir.
But he said with Deshaun Watson, it was a swing and a miss, and he took responsibility. He fell on the sword, which Jimmy Haslam doesn't do. And so now the Browns fans are like, okay, we can get with you because now you admitted that you made a mistake, and so watch what happens. But I do think that the Browns will get Travis Hunter. I think you can't miss with that.
And after listening to you, Rod, I'm on board now with Travis Hunter as well. Picking him, like you say, he can play both sides of the ball. They're not going to play him both sides of the ball all year long, every down, this and that. His body can't take it. But you can see, like, in the red zone, inside the 20 or whatever have you, putting them in. They empty the backfield out, take a tight end out, and got nothing but receivers. You got sheer weapons there. So, I'm all on board and in favor of him as well. Travis Hunter, yep.
Right.
Let's get him.
My fear is for the Cleveland Browns, fellas, is this. We've been really hard pressed to find that franchise quarterback. Baker Mayfield, that was a failure. Although I think they pulled the trigger a little bit on Baker Mayfield. To be candid, I was on board with Deshaun Watson when they made that deal. I thought that was a great move for the Cleveland Browns, but obviously Deshaun Watson didn't turn out to be what everyone thought he was going to be. So now we bring back in Joe Flacco, and it kind of puts the franchise quarterback talk on the shelf a little bit, and it just moved things out. What do you think the plans are for the Cleveland Browns? I know we can't see into the future, but what do you think the plan is for the Cleveland Browns going forward to try to find that guy? Because we need a franchise quarterback.
Well, let me go first real quick, Rod. Bringing in Flacco, to hold it down for this year, and maybe some of next year gives us time. Because maybe next year draft looks a little better as far as quarterbacks, and maybe the year after. So for right now, it's all about, Flacco being the guy until we get somebody. So there's not that much pressure, right now to, get that guy, because that person doesn't seem to be in this draft. That player doesn't seem to be in this draft. So right now, that's why you got Flacco. And to answer your question, ask that next year or a year afterwards. Right now, we got our guy.
Yep.
Yeah, we got our guy.
Yeah. So, Flacco, of course, being the bridge quarterback, I think, and I know this is not a popular take, I think they have more confidence in Kenny Pickett than people are giving them. I
believe
think they're
that.
looking at, I think they're looking at Kenny Pickett for the fact that he was in Philadelphia behind Jalen Hurts. He got a year, up under his belt. He had a bad situation in Pittsburgh, and they're really looking at, Kenny Pickett as maybe not the recent future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not looking at him as the franchise guy, but they're looking at him as, okay, right now, because Joe Flacco's 40, he'll be 41 years old. I don't see Joe Flacco playing 17, 18 games. I just don't, just age-wise. So then you have that backup plan with Kenny Pickett. To answer your question, their big board is this. If Cam Ward drops, they'll grab Cam Ward in a heartbeat. That is the only person that they'll probably draft if it wasn't Travis Hunter, is Cam Ward. If Cam Ward does not come available, then Jackson Dart. If Jackson Dart is available, they will jump on Jackson Dart because, remember, they got number 2 and number 33. So that 33rd is going to be a quarterback. So if it's Jackson Dart, they will take Jackson Dart. This is just my opinion. If Jackson Dart is not there, don't be surprised at Jalen Milroe because they really like him as well. They like him as a future, okay, because you got a kid 6'3", 240 pounds who can run, and they'll teach him how to throw the football. And my sleeper, if they can't get the 3 of those, don't be surprised that Will Howard does not show up in a Cleveland Browns uniform, simply because he has the same demographics as Joe Flacco. He's a big quarterback who he can run, but he also can drive the ball down the field. So though that, to me, quarterback wise, that's the Browns' big board. Also, if Will Howard shows up, now the fans are happy. Why? Because you have an Ohio State quarterback who is a national champion.
Yeah.
All they're doing right now is PR moves. These are PR moves that the Browns are doing, but they're making their team better. So that to me is what I think the Browns are going to do. Now, if they don't get that, if they get that quarterback now, they're still looking. They really like Arch Manning. They do.
Everybody likes Arch Manning.
Right. But here's my problem with
Yeah.
that. And I'm trying to get people to understand. When Eli came out, Archie made it known he's not going to San Diego. He came out and he said it. That's why Eli ended up going to New York. He forced his hand. That's why it makes me mad when people talk about Dion, because Archie Manning did the same thing. Okay, but I just don't see Arch in a Browns uniform unless the Browns are not going to tank this year. They can't afford it. Not with the stadium in Brook Park. They can't afford it. So they're trying to win but they're trying to win under their dime. Make sense?
Right. Question: why aren't they talking more about Will Howard? Why isn't he talked about? What's the knock against him?
The knock against him is that
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you good, Rod. Go ahead.
The knock against him is because of the pro-style offense that Chip Kelly ran and the weapons that he had on the outside with Jeremiah Smith and Mike Ibuka and those guys and G. Scott. And then you had Travion Henderson in the backfield with Quinshon Junkins. So what they saying with Will Howard, they're basically saying you could put any quarterback in that system last year and the Ohio State Buckeyes would have still won. So they're saying that it didn't matter. So that's the knock on Will Howard. However, when he played at Kansas State, he was a player. Okay, so I'm not dismissive of Will Howard, but that's why the Browns are not talking about it. And that's why a lot of teams are not talking about Will Howard, because they're saying he's a system quarterback. That's what they're saying he is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questioning of his decision-making. They like his measurables. I mean, he's a big, strapping quarterback. So I think that enamors a lot of people. But I think a lot of people question his decision-making. And rumor had it that if he would have stayed at Kansas State, that he probably would have lost his spot to the incoming quarterback that they had there. So there are those narratives that are out there as well. And then there's the whole, the end of the first Oregon game, the Michigan game. Those things are kind of out there on film. I think Will Howard, I think you can probably question whether or not he's an NFL talent right now, but I think his best football is ahead of him. I think once he gets in the league, gets some really good coaching, I think he can be a hell of a quarterback. And, while we're on quarterbacks, I think a guy that's getting a lot of heat is Shadour Sanders. Rodney, you and I talked a little bit about this. I think a lot of it, when it comes to sports, I think a lot of people, they tie in their emotions to be able to evaluate talent. And Shedeur is obviously the son of Deion Sanders. There are a lot of people that are fans of Deion Sanders, but there's a lot of people that hate Deion Sanders as well. And so I think Shedeur gets a little bit of that. Everything that I see about Shedeur over the past couple of weeks is he is steadily dropping down the draft board. And Shedeur is one of the most accurate quarterbacks that I've seen in a long time. He comes up when the team needs him in big-time moments. Did he win a national championship? No, but there's only one quarterback that won a national championship. And I think a lot of the heat that his dad gets is unfortunately, unfairly, whatever way you look at it, is put upon him. And I think a lot of teams are kind of hand off because they feel like if they draft this kid, there may be a circus with the whole Deion Sanders being his last name type stuff. I mean, what do you guys think about Shedeur, why he's dropping down the draft board? I would love your opinions on that.
Let me go. I guess the draft can't come soon enough.
Yep.
I feel the Giants would be the perfect fit for him. Again, you got Russell Wilson there. You got Jameis there, where this kid doesn't have to go in and necessarily take over. He can take time to develop. He can get settled in to New York, okay, that big conglomerate that it is. So if he lands with the Giants, I think he'll be okay. I really do. Elsewhere, not quite sure. But again, everything that you spoke of, all the heat and everything that comes his way is because of his last name and his dad. There you go. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah, it is actually, to me, kind of pitiful how Shedeur is being covered. Number one, the kid is a winner. He went to Jackson State and he won. He won at Jackson State, at a historical black college. Then he goes to Colorado and he was behind an absolute trash offensive line. He was running for his life and he was still winning. He won. Okay.
Rod, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but keep in mind that when he made that transfer to Colorado, there were some people, experts, that were saying he couldn't play at that level.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And once again, because he is a Sanders, he proved them wrong, and he was able, to play. Now let's take, we could take some quarterbacks because we got these gurus. We got Todd McShay and Mel Kiper and these guys, talking about, well, he doesn't have this and he doesn't have that, and no, you look at this kid's film, he is a winner. That's what he does. That's why if the Browns were to take him, I wouldn't be upset, okay? Because the kid knows how to win. And the biggest thing, I think, the turnoff, one, like T said, is because of who his father is, because of the Sanders name, and because this kid has confidence in himself. They call it, it's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And so they're trying to make him seem like he's an arrogant young man. No, he's a confident young man. He knows his abilities. All right. And so
Yeah.
I think, the best fit for him, I do like the Giants, but I think, the Giants are all in right now by getting Russell Wilson, by getting Jameis Winston. And so I think they're in an all-in mode. It's a possibility, and we talked about this off air. It's a possibility that I think, because Derek Carr is now injured in New Orleans, I think that he may, New Orleans may pick him up. But right now, the one that got me on fear mode is if at 21 the Pittsburgh Steelers pick him up. That is scary. Okay,
Very scary.
to pick Shadour Sanders up, right? And then one last thing, it's not just a slander against Shedeur. Tell me, have you heard anything about Shiloh, his brother?
No.
Have you?
No.
He's a safety. You've heard nothing about Shiloh. And when you hear about Shiloh, they talk as if Shiloh is an absolute bum. Shiloh is a hitter. Okay? Shiloh will come down and knock himself out to dislodge the ball from you. Okay? So it's just the fact that their father, who is the greatest corner and you can possibly say greatest athlete of all time, okay, now his sons are coming out and, because let's be honest, and here's another show for you. Let's talk about, players and their sons and how they panned out. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I think that it's a bad rap against Shedeur. I think Shedeur is going to be a quality pro. Like I said, New Orleans, because he's in a dome, he's inside. I heard the Raiders, even though they signed Geno Smith, Tom Brady is running and is over at organization in the front office, and Pete Carroll is the coach, and they love Shedeur. So he's going to go to, and we talked about this when we were talking about NBA, when we were talking about Zion Williamson last week. He needs to go to a team where there are a bunch of adults. That's where he needs to go, and somebody who can take him by the shoulder and say, "Okay, kid, here's where we're going to go."
Yeah, when you're looking at Shedeur, man, I hear a lot of different, analytics and analysts talking about Shedeur, what he can do and what he can't do. I respect everybody's opinion, but just be real with me. The one knock that I heard this week about Shadour Sanders was that 75% of his passes came at the line of scrimmage or 5 yards beyond. And so I'm not even going to sit here in front and act like I've gone back and watched a lot of film on Shadour Sanders. But here's what I'm going to say. You could have said the same thing about Bo Nix coming out of Oregon last year. They did a lot of things with smoke and mirrors, and arguably you could say that Bo Nix had a pretty good rookie season with the Denver Broncos. So
I was talking about him the other day. That kid he's pretty good. He's darn good. He is.
Yeah. And I would sit here and say this remains to be seen. But I would say that Shedeur is more talented than a Bo Nix. So when you start comparing and contrasting, he threw 5-yard screen plays and they did a lot of things with smoke and mirrors. I think it's just an excuse to kind of pile on top of the kid. I agree with you, Rod and T. I think Shedeur is going to be fantastic. I just think that he's got to get in the right environment, and he's got to get with the right team. And so that's going to be pivotal for the young man for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, man. The one thing that hit me, switching this thing to the NBA, Luka went back home. And the emotion that was tied to that, like I knew Luka was going to give it to him. But my fear was I knew how the fans were going to treat him. I didn't know that they were going to have this big presentation before the game, but I knew the fans were going to give him a standing ovation. And I thought to myself, man, how much of an alpha dog can you be when your former fan base is giving you a standing ovation every time you touch the ball? You saw the tears from Luka. He was obviously touched, very classy by the Dallas Mavericks fans to give him that sort of motivation. And then once that ended, Luka came out and gave it to him. He gave it to him by a 45-point combination of just great plays, and Luka was Luka. What are you guys' thoughts about what you saw with that and the whole emotion that Luca Doncic showed coming back to Dallas?
Yeah, and Dallas had to do that, okay? Because really, in all reality, the organization gave up on him. The organization gave up on him. They dumped him. Good riddance of you, blase, blase. Again, I think if Mark Cuban would have been there, that would have never happened. That would have never happened. If he still had full ownership, that would have never happened. But you're right. Luka returned, and he dropped buckets, and he continued dropping buckets. And, hey, the fans, we fans, that's how we are. We're going to love you. And that organization and what they did, going forward, they got some fixing up to do. They really do. Or fans aren't going to go there and support them, support the organization. But, yeah, Luka came back like a thief in the night and really took it to him. Yeah, he took it to him, looked good. And they're a dangerous team down the stretch. Now, I know LeBron is a little nicked up right now, and, he may, I don't know how – much he's going to be able to give in their first series. And I guess after tonight, we'll know who they're going to match up against. But that team looks to be pretty dangerous, man. If LeBron can, heal up. So there you go.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Rod.
Luka went in. What the Mavericks did was of course damage control. That I don't condone it, but Nico Harrison, the GM, was getting death threats. It was that bad. But that was more of damage control. Luka Doncic has nothing against the fan base in Dallas. They love him. They still love him. He loves them. But it is Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd. Every time he sees them from this point forward, he is going to light them up. Because like T said, they gave up on him. Now, did Luka have some issues? Yeah, he did. He has some issues, but we can talk about all the NBA superstars that have issues. But Dallas, for whatever reason, felt like they did not want to supermax him. They didn't feel like that he could get them over the hump. Now, with a healthy Kyrie Irving coming back next year, hopefully, a healthy Anthony Davis, the core that they have, they can still win. All right, they still have the ability to win. But I think, and I agree with T, if LeBron James is healthy, and remember, we all know LeBron is not a regular season guy. He is a get me to the playoffs. And so this is where he becomes dangerous. Right now is during the playoffs, but is it scary to see a healthy LeBron, even at 40, and a healthy Luka Doncic? Yeah, that's scary, real scary. But yeah, Luka gave him buckets, and he should have. Class act to, the Mavericks of celebrating him like that, and the fan base. I felt bad for Anthony Davis because Anthony Davis got traded, and they're cheering as if he didn't even exist. Like, we like you, but we love him, and so, but yeah, they had to do that. It's just like when LeBron goes back to Cleveland, they're always celebrating. It's just it was a PR thing that they did. They had to do that. You know what I mean? And Luka said thank you, but here, go ahead and take this 45 and let's go on about our business.
Yeah, yeah,
45 piece.
yeah. Nico Harrison, man, I'm telling you right now, he is dead man walking. This is unsurvivable. It is
Yeah,
unsurvivable for
yeah.
him. I look at his career, and he's going to be out of there sooner and later. How do you come back? Number one, from in some circles, whether you believe it or not, Luka was considered as the best player in the NBA, depending on who you talk
Hmm.
to. So he's in that conversation. So there you're talking about talent. Okay,
Yep.
now you're talking about popularity. You're talking about an entity that put people in the seats, every home game. And you could see the love that the fans have for this man. And you've traded him. And I think to myself, I sit back and I think, man, how can Nico survive this? Like, it would take the Dallas Mavericks winning a championship sooner than later. That's not going to happen with Kyrie Irving out. Kyrie Irving, as talented as he is, Kyrie Irving is getting up there, man. He's getting old. So
Yep.
who knows how he's going to come back from this ACL stuff. You can't count on Anthony Davis. He's hurt every other game. Charles Barkley gave him the nickname Street Clothes.
Street clothes.
He didn't do that. He didn't do that for any reason, so you can't count on that. So I just think it is heading down the road of failure. And I agree with you, Rod and T, with LeBron being healthy and Luka being who he is, and a pretty good supporting cast with the Lakers. The Dallas Mavericks are going to have to sit back. Their fans are going to have to sit back and watch Luka flourish with another team in the West. And I'm not saying that the Lakers are going to win a championship, but I don't think you can dismiss them either.
They're
with
ahead of
that.
Dallas.
Oh, exactly. So Nico signed his death certificate, man. When he made that trade, the fans the other night, every time Luka touched the ball, what were they yelling? Fire, Nico.
Yeah, they were.
Fire. I mean, come on, man. Come on. He's taking more heat in Dallas right now than Ryan Day took when he lost to Michigan this year in Ohio.
That's a lot of heat.
And that was some heat. That was some heat.
Yeah.
What do you got? Do you think Nico's out there? Is he out of Dallas sooner than later?
Let me do this to you real quick. Yeah. Not only is Nico out of Dallas, don't be shocked because Jason Kidd co-signed it.
Yes.
And so Jason Kidd is on the hot seat too. Because he co-signed that trade. And I'm gonna be honest, this is just from Coach Young and Coach Young only. I am not and never been impressed with Jason Kidd as a coach.
Yeah.
Never been impressed at all. So at this point, Nico and Jason Kidd, they are both on the hot seat. The Mavericks have got to at least, and maybe not this year, the people gonna give him a pass this year, unless Luka and LeBron, if Luka wins a championship this year, Nico's done.
He's done.
He's gonna be the first piece that falls. Okay. So Nico is praying to whoever he prays to that Luka and LeBron get eliminated real soon and real quick. Because if Luca Doncic wins an NBA championship in Los Angeles, Nico Collins that next day will be on the unemployment line.
I'm going to be real quick, fellas. I got a toy from my childhood. Both of them will be on the Greyhound bus out of town. They'll both be on the bus out of town, fellas. They'll both be out.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome.
That's fantastic. And listen, man, I'll say this about Jason Kidd. If you haven't YouTubed this or Googled this, this is the day I lost respect for Jason Kidd. I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe he was the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. And he was out of time, and he out of timeouts. And so he told one of his players who was coming off the court to bump into him so he could spill his water. So he could spill his water on the court just so somebody would have to clean it up and he can get an extra timeout. I said, man, how Bush League is that? Come on, man. Remember that show Chris Carter used to always have on ESPN? Come on, man.
Come on, man. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So, the one thing that we can't forget about being that we're Cleveland homeboys is the job that our Cleveland Cavaliers have done this year securing the number 1 seed. I think that people kind of had in their heads that there wasn't much life without LeBron James with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But with LeBron James going to the Lakers, I think by NBA standards, the Cleveland Cavaliers have retooled pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. They've gone through a couple of coaching changes. They seem to have a pretty good head coach at the helm right now. And their team is a 3-level team. What I mean by that is there are some games that the Cavs can do you outside the 3-point line. They've got the intermediate slash game, and they can do you on the inside on the blocks with their size, one of the bigger teams in the NBA in terms of their front court. I mean, they have a little bit of everything. Now they've got the number 1 seed. And Rodney and T, all of us being Cleveland fans, we are no strangers to being set up for disappointment.
Oh, yeah.
But this team seems to be prime to do something special this year. I'm not saying championship because they got a long way to go with that. I mean, they got the Celtics. I don't care what the Celtics record is. They're still formidable. And then whoever comes out of the West, whether it's, the Nuggets, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, whoever, that's going to be another task. OKC, that's going to be another task.
Yeah.
But the Cleveland Cavaliers just seem prepared in a lot of different areas. The coaching, the play, the chemistry of the players, the depth. Yep, the bench. I mean, they've got everything. What are your thoughts about the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Yeah, I'm so proud of them. I really am. Hats off to Kenny Atkinson, the job that he's done this year, Donovan and all of those guys, going out every night and playing hard, okay, playing hard. They've really given us a lot to be proud of this season. And, again, I still think it's through Boston. They're the champs. Their backcourt is large, and they create problems for us. But aside from that, I'm proud of my team. I really am. A lot of nights I stayed up listening to them on XM radio, listening to Austin Carr, call the games, and the post-game show with Brad Sellers and Jim Chones and those other guys. I just love what the Cavs brought this year. I really did, and I'm proud of them. I love their bench. I was watching them the other night. They had most of their starters off and went toe-to-toe with Milwaukee, right? Wasn't it Milwaukee they went toe-to-toe with? And then they, beat the Knicks the other night. Oh, the Pacers, right? The Pacers. They went toe-to-toe with the Pacers, and so I'm proud of those guys. So making it to the Eastern Conference Finals is my expectations of them, and then what happens after that, I'm still proud of them, and hey, they are set to look good for the next season or two. So I'm proud of them, proud of those guys.
Yeah, this is, and I never really said this about Cavalier teams, but this team is fun to watch.
Yes.
They literally are fun to watch because they play a style of basketball that us basketball purists love to see, and that's ball movement, man movement, defensively when they lock down. And this is how I knew that the Cavs are ready to run in the playoffs. Kenny Atkinson got thrown out in Indiana.
Yeah, he sure did.
That let me know because Kenny is a mild-mannered kind of guy. I don't even remember Kenny because I've watched the majority, like 85% of the Cavaliers games. I don't even remember him getting a technical foul.
He was hotter than fish grease that night.
Kenny got thrown out in that game was a sight to see because he was fighting for that 15th guy, which was Tristan Thompson. And that let me know. I said, okay, Kenny's ready. He's ready to go. And even when they played the Pacers, they lost by 2, 114 to 112. But you had no Darius Garland. You had no Donovan Mitchell. You played DeAndre Hunter a few minutes. You played Ty Jerome a few minutes. Your ending group was with Isaac Okoro and Jalen Tyson. and Craig Porter Jr., and they were going toe to toe with Indiana. And then they go the next night to New York, and the Knicks were stunned. The
Yeah.
Knicks were up 23, and the Cavs came back and with Darius Garland. That's the Darius Garland that I need to see in the playoffs. Is that
Yeah.
Darius Garland that could not be guarded? The Knicks had no answer for Darius Garland. And if Darius Garland plays that style of basketball in the playoffs, the Cavaliers are going to be impossible to beat. But I'm definitely looking forward to the playoffs, and it's almost to a point where it doesn't matter who they play. I think they're if they play their style of basketball, the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, the Cavaliers are going to be a tough out, and
Yeah.
you know, I did a podcast, on my Vikings channel, talking about Josh McCown and these unsung heroes that are kind of behind the scenes. They're not head coaches, but they seem to be making a difference in terms of developing the personnel, letting them know what to expect. There's a guy on the Cleveland Cavaliers team right now by the name of Tristan Thompson, who he was around. He was around when the Cleveland Cavaliers had LeBron. They were winning championships. Then he bounced around the league for a little bit, then end up coming back. And he doesn't have a big role on this team in terms of play, but he's a smart guy. He's a guy that has been there and done that, has been through the rigors of the playoffs in terms of winning championship. He is a understated big part of this coaching staff. I mean, he's not a coach, but he's a player that brings a coach's mentality into that locker room. And he is somebody that I think has really helped the Cleveland Cavaliers front court and going to help them during the playoffs. Rod, what are your thoughts about Tristan?
Well, Tristan is what you call a veteran. He's a true veteran. I mean, You got to think about it. He was on that 2016 team that won the NBA championship coming back from a 3-1 deficit, and he was a major focal point. He is a voice in that locker room with all these young guys, even Donovan, all of these young guys. He's that voice that they can lean on. He's got that championship experience. And he, and he can go out there and he is he's the person that has gotten Evan Mobley, believe it or not, where Evan Mobley is. It's been Tristan Thompson, because Tristan Thompson has instilled in Evan Mobley and let Evan Mobley know, dude, you can be dominant. You have that ability, and he's been in his head, and that's why he's been in Jared Allen's head. That's why Jared Allen wants to play all 82 games, because Jared Allen wants to prove. Jared Allen wants to prove, and that's people saying, well, why does he want to play all 82? Because all of y'all, and I'm saying them, the naysayers, talked about him, and I was one of them, talked about him last year because he cracked his rib and wouldn't play through it. So he's trying to prove a point that I can play all 82 games, okay? I love how Kenny is playing him. Hey, you get a few minutes here, but you're getting off the floor. You go ahead and sit down, because they play today, and I guarantee you, if starters play, they ain't gonna play long. But Tristan Thompson is that veteran that the Cavaliers need, that this young team needed. That's the one reason why I hated that they got rid of Kevin Love, because Kevin Love was a part of that process as well. But Kevin still felt like that he could play, which in all actuality he can't. He's done. But that's why he went to Miami. But no, Tristan Thompson is a key piece. He is a key piece to this championship run that the Cavs have to make, because against those tough teams, the Orlandos or the Milwaukees, that's the time where you lean on Tristan and say, okay, what are we doing here? And Tristan's going to let Darius and those guys know, and Donovan. So, no, I'm glad that he's here. Now, when I see him on the floor for major minutes, I'm concerned. I can't tell you a lot. But if I see him like in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left, I know the Cavs have done something special. That's fine.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, this could be a dream season for me, because my team in the West, The Minnesota Timberwolves possibly could get to the promised land. And then I got my Cleveland Cavaliers that could possibly get to the promised land. Man, that would be good. One last question. I'm going to put you guys on the hot seat right now is, we always talk about LeBron James and the teams that he has played for. I got into a debate about this with a coworker of mine on campus at work. And so I said, okay, I'm going to bring it to the podcast to see what you guys think. When LeBron James hangs it up, he's got, a couple of years left. Who knows? When he hangs it up, who does he retire as? Cavalier? Miami Heat? Los Angeles Lakers?
Cleveland Cavaliers. He's from Northeast Ohio, okay? That was the team that drafted him. That was his first team. It's in the area, in the community where he grew up, and he brought us our first championship in 50-plus years. That's no doubt as a Cleveland Cavalier. Cleveland Cavalier, no doubt.
What you got, Rob?
All right.
That's tough one, man.
I want him to retire as a Cleveland Cavalier, but I honestly think he's going to pull a Kobe. And what I mean by that is he's going to go in if it's allowed. He's going to push it to go in at each sector. So the 23 of the Cavs, the number 6 of the Heat, and then the 23 of the Lakers. Now, if you twist my arm and you say, okay, you got to pick one, he should go in as a Cleveland Cavalier because that, just like T said, that's who drafted him. That's where he got the first years. I don't think he'll go in as a Miami Heat because of his beef with Pat Riley on his way out. I honestly don't think he'll go in as a Laker, even though he makes inklings like that. I don't think he'll go in as a Laker because it's too much history and he can't be the center of attention. At least as a Cavalier, least as a Cavalier, he can be the center of attention. That's another reason why I'm really pushing for this current Cavalier team to go to the NBA Finals. Because if they can win it, now you just not hanging a LeBron James statue out there. Now you got to talk about Donovan Mitchell becoming one of those greats. You got to talk about Evan Mobley becoming one of those greats. Darius Garland, you got to be talking about that. So I believe that he will go in as a Cavalier because that's where he's most recognizable as a Cavalier.
I appreciate those answers. I didn't know. The conversation came up because someone tried to hit me about Kevin Garnett. Does Kevin Garnett go into the Hall of Fame as a Timberwolf or does he go in the Hall of Fame as a Boston Celtic? And it's a good conversation to have. I just don't know. I would like to think that he would go in as a Cleveland Cavalier. I think he should go in as a Cleveland Cavalier. But when it comes to LeBron James, man, you just never know. Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah. You never know what he's going to do, but he should go in as a Cavalier. He should go in as a Cav.
Absolutely.
KG is more recognizable as a Boston Celtic, but when you talk to Kevin Garnett, he has nothing but love for the Minnesota Timberwolves and their organization.
Yes, sir.
Nothing but love for them. But when you recognize Kevin Garnett's greatness, it was as a Boston Celtic, unfortunately.
And he has love, Lionel, for your late mentor, the late great Flip Saunders. Kevin Garnett does.
Flip Saunders.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have many memories of working for that organization. That's another story for another show. But I remember when KG first came into the Timberwolves. A lot of people don't know this. I was there working the night that Kevin Garnett played his first game as a former high schooler, where he had his warm-up stuff on but didn't have his jersey on underneath. So Flip goes to sub him into the game, and he didn't have his stuff on, so he had to run back to the locker room to get dressed and come back and get subbed in. And Flip couldn't do anything but laugh because he still had that high school kid mentality. But we'll talk about that for another show because I got a lot of good stories about the Timberwolves and Flip Saunders. Lots of great things happening in sports this past week. So, T, you came up with a great idea of just, talking about something significant that happened within the last week of sports, AKA like the old sports reporter show on ESPN, one of my favorite shows. So when you guys think about something significant that happened in sports this past week, what do you got for your parting shot?
I'm a day off. I'm going to channel my inner hockey. Alex Ovechkin breaking the record last Saturday in Washington, breaking the all-time scoring record.
I think we lost T.
I'm starting to learn hockey and follow hockey. I follow our Columbus,
why
Blue
don't you
Jackets.
hit your
So
parting shot?
it's got to be Alex. Breaking the scoring record.
Okay, so
last week
my
in
parting
Washington.
shot is a little bit. I want to give a shout out to Donovan Mitchell of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He actually brought a young man to the game this week. His name is Tyler Soden.
Yeah, well, it's
He's a 16-year-old kid. He actually saved 3 people from a mother and her 2 children from a burning home. He saw that the home was on fire. The fire department was taking a moment to get there, and he took a ladder, put a ladder against the house, climbed into this burning house, and saved the mother, and it was a 7-year-old and a 10-month-old, and he saved them. And so Donovan Mitchell had him come to the Cavalier game, and they celebrated that young man for his heroism. And so shout out to Tyler Soden, and shout out to Donovan Mitchell for just acknowledging what is truly a hero. So that's my take for this week.
That is an unbelievable story. I hadn't heard that, so I'm glad you brought that to my attention. When you're faced with peril like that, you never know what you're going to do, and I think it takes a large amount of bravery to be able to put your self-health aside and go in and save somebody else, especially for a situation like that. So that young man needed to be celebrated and heralded at the Cleveland Cavalier game. So hats off to Donovan Mitchell. T, you're back?
Yeah,
What's
I'm back.
your parting shot, T?
Yeah. Alex Ovechkin breaking the scoring title in hockey last week in Washington. Yep. Channel my inner hockey.
Yeah, that is awesome, especially when you're talking about the great one, Wayne Gretzky.
Oh yeah.
Surpassing him. That is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, that's mine.
Yeah. My parting shot is I'm on the level of hockey as well, T. Western Michigan won the NCAA Division I Men's Hockey Championship.
Okay.
And so for those of you that are not familiar with hockey, don't watch it, not familiar with NCAA Division I hockey, I'm not an avid watcher of hockey as well, but I appreciate the accomplishment. That would be the equivalent. People were talking about, Jones, why is this a big deal? Imagine Western Michigan football winning the college football playoffs. Yeah. Imagine Western Michigan's men's basketball team winning the March Madness field of 64 playoffs. Imagine their women winning the NCAA National Championship Tournament. This is the same.
Right.
For them to beat Boston University,
Right.
first of all, get to the Frozen Four, and then be able to beat those teams of that caliber that had traditionally been there before, and to come out with their first national championship in hockey
Says a lot.
when they weren't even on the radar to begin the season. I just think that's one of the best accomplishments in sports in a long time. So that's my parting shot. Hats off to Western Michigan hockey. Well, fellas, another great show. I appreciate you guys taking the time. This 3 the hard way is starting to grow on me, fellas. It's starting to grow on me. So we're going to come up with this name. We're going to decide on it this week. Next week, we'll have a name in place for the show. I really appreciate doing the show with you fellas, T and Rod. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Y'all have a blessed week. Remember, make your day. Don't make your day make you.
There you go.
Absolutely. And we will see you when we see you, UP Nation. Peace.
Take care, UP Nation.
People never think about it, 'cause they ain't never had to deal with people doubting on them. And when they see it in their faces, they just try ignoring. That they might be the very reason no one else is sorry. And why?